Okay, let's go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight is not only lady, but ladies and gentlemen. It's so nice to have two women in the crowd with us tonight. It's even nicer, as I said before, to not have anybody on Zoom. We welcome those on Facebook Live. Everybody who was on Zoom is now in person in this room. And we have now moved on to 11 people in this room coming to the shir. This is, as far as I'm concerned, I'm in heaven. This is bliss. Thank you so much. You thought it takes a lot to get a rabbi happy. Look how little it takes to make the rabbi happy. Some people are like, oh, 11 people, that's a small share. I'm like, 11 people came to my share. It's wonderful, right? I did want to say to Panan, you can say, no, we can't say, oh, maybe. I'm trying to count because we have two ladies here. I think we have 11 plus me is 12, but it's two women, so we will have a minion of 10 men. Otherwise, sorry about that. I don't mean to. That sounds very sexist, Maureen, doesn't it? It's all right, quite all right. I'll get you back later. No, I didn't say that. No, I didn't say that, and I wouldn't say that. My wife would kill me if I said it, right? Okay, let's go. We have a wonderful Pasha this week. We start a new Sefer Devorim, and in Sefer Devorim we have Moshe Rabbeinu recounts part of the story of what happened to the Jewish people in the 40 years they were in the desert, tells them a few more mitzvahs having to do with Eretz Yisrael, lots of different things going on in the Sefer of Devarim. So I'd like to point to you something very beautiful that I saw tonight in the name of the Sfas Emes. Must tell you, years ago, I used to go to shir on Sfas Emes. The Sfas Emes was the third Gera Rebbe. So the first Gera Rebbe was known as the Chidushi Harim. His son was called the Imre Emes, and his son was called the Sfas Emes. And the Sfas Emes was Rabbi Yehuda Leib Alter. I think it's Rabbi Yehuda Leib. And he was a third Gera Rebbe, and he wrote a sefer called Sfas Emes, and that's why he's called the Sfas Emes. Now, his book is very cryptic. The wording is written very, very short, very brief, and unless you really know what he's saying, when you read it, it's very hard to get an idea of what they're saying. Certain authors, you find it very hard to read. So I remember Sfas Emes to be a very, very difficult sefer. I used to go to shir by a fellow by the name of Rabbi Freifeld. He used to give a shir in Beit Vegan. We used to go to shir sometimes on Thursday night in Sfas Emes. And tonight, I saw the following idea brought by the Sfas Emes, which is really a very beautiful idea that I wanted to share with you. So here it goes. We have in this week's parasha, and if you're listening on Shabbos, you'll hear this. We're on page 942. And on page 942, you will find the following words. Ta-dam. Eicha esa levadi, verse 12. Eicha esa levadi, how can I alone carry your contentiousness, your burdens, and your quarrels? That's Moshe Rabbeinu says to the Jewish people. It's really difficult for me to manage you people. Okay, anybody who has ever had to run anything with lots of Jewish people will know it's not easy. We're not always an easy people to run. We can be contentious, we can be quarrelsome, we could be burdensome. It's not easy. Aris, you worked in the office, you know what I'm talking about. Yes, you've seen this before, right? You know what I mean, right? So it's hard. But in this week's parasha, when we read this Eicha, you'll find actually the following. When you get to this, we change the Baal Koreh, in this instance me, would change over the Nigun, and instead of reading it regularly, what we'll hear is the tune of Eicha. Eicha esa levadi, tarchachem umasachem merivchem. Right? Now, that is not the laning tune. That is a tune that we read for Eicha, a very mournful tune. So why is it that we change around the tune over here to Eicha? So you'd say, well, we say the word Eicha. This week, Matzei Shabbos, if Mashiach hasn't come yet, we will be reading the Megillah of Eicha. Eicha Yoshva Badad. There shall also be that similar tune. And so therefore, we're trying to connect the two. And Parashas Devarim, parenthetically, Shabbos Chazon, the Shabbos before Tisha B'Av, is always Parashas Devarim. So there is that connection. There's an Eicha here, there's an Eicha there. So because there's two Eichas, let's put the two of them together. However, there's actually a third Eicha that we read, which is going to be read this week in the Haftarah of Shabbos Chazon. Eicha Yisrael Kirya Nemna. Right? How did she become like a harlot? The city that was so trustworthy. So we have a third Eicha. There's three Eichas. One Eicha here, laying in the tune of Eicha. How am I going to bear your contentiousness, your burdens, and your quarrels. The second Eicha, read by Yeshaya Hanavi. How did the Jewish people turn around and become into Zoina, so to speak? And lastly, Eicha Yoshva Badad. How did she sit by herself? And the Sfas Emes says there seems to be over here a connection between these three Eichas. We have them all together. In this instance, we're going to be reading them in less than 24 hours. You'll have the Parsha, the Haftarah, and at night you'll read the Eicha as in the Megillah. All together. Oh, Climus Barkley's here. Somebody's here on Zoom. I knew there would be a reason to have Zoom. Okay? So, Eicha, we read over here this Eicha. Just try this. So you read over here this Eicha together with the other two Eichas. So there seems to be some kind of connection. What's the connection? So what the Sfas Emes says is very interesting and very true. He says many times, if you were to look at people in good times, and then let's say 5-10 years later, they go bankrupt, somebody who really understands what's going on over there will know and will be able to say, that's where it happened. That's where the kink was. That's where the problem was. Okay? Again, with the blessing or with the hindsight that we have now, you can look back at the 2007, 2008 property crash, and you could have said in 2005 already, anybody who had seichel then said, oh, this is not going to work. This can't keep on going forever. Look how the banks are giving out free money. Look at this, look at that. Something's going to burst, something's going to burst, and then boom, it burst. And I was like, hey, it burst. And there probably were a few people standing there going, I told you so. This was going to happen. Now already people are starting to say, look, the property cycle is moving in the same direction that it moved in 2007, 2008. Prices are going up, inflation, it's impossible to manage. The property is going to bust again. People are now trying to learn the lesson. But if you really understood the forces, you could have already said between 2004 and 2006, looking at the market, I know they're going bust. If you had understood what was going on in Woolworths, you know, when Woolworths came out and said we're going bankrupt, for people, I mean, I didn't grow up in this country, so it's not such a shock for me. But for people who grew up in this country, especially people who grew up many, many years in this country, when Woolworths went bust, it was like, Woolworths? Woolworths is one of the most iconic names in the British commercial world. I mean, it's been around, how long was it around for? 90 years, 100 years? The shops are around for, well, before anybody in this room was born. You know, all of you were born into a world that existed with Woolworths and existed throughout your entire life. And for one day and the next, Woolworths says we're closing. BHS said we're closing. And for a lot of people, they're like, how could that be? How could a shop as big as that, with that much revenue, close? But the people that understand and can look at the sheets, at the finances, et cetera, can say, I saw the hole already 5 years before that. There was a hole, and they're plugging the hole incorrectly, and they were doing things incorrectly, and they were losing money here, and they're losing money there, and they were trying to make up for it, and they couldn't really see it, and boom, they went bust. Many times, the issues that exist, and when people suddenly have a big fall, it's not because from one day to the next they have a big fall. That's rare. Usually, there's a decline. And the people that really understand can point at the decline. It's, by the way, it's similar in health also. Very rarely do you have somebody that from one day to the next suddenly is unwell. You know, the exception to the rule could be someone like you, Michael. You know, you got COVID from one day to the next. In February 2020, you might not have even known what COVID was, right? In March 2020, you were fighting for your life. But that was sudden. But there are many people where they have things that happen to them not suddenly. The doctor said you need to lose weight. The doctor said you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to exercise more, you need to have a better diet. And the doctor says your cholesterol is high. And the doctor says, you know, and suddenly the person gets heart disease and suddenly has a heart attack. People don't have heart attacks overnight, usually. Usually a heart attack is a buildup that happened over a long time. Bad diet, lack of exercise, maybe lack of sleep, too much stress. You add all those factors together, nebuch, people have had terrible, terrible heart disease from it. But if somebody had looked beforehand, if you'd been to the right doctors, they would say the writing's on the wall. Come on, get your act together. You still want to be here in 5 years' time, you gotta shape up. And if they don't listen, 5 years later, somebody goes, I can't believe it. He's 45. He just dropped dead from a heart attack. But what would the doctor say? I told you so. There'll be doctors out there that said, I've been telling this guy for the last 5-10 years, you're walking around with 50 extra pounds. It's dangerous. You're smoking 30, 40 cigarettes a day. That's dangerous. It doesn't come out of nowhere. Very rarely does that come out of nowhere. And so therefore, we see over here, says Smas Emes, a decline that happens from the Jewish people over here in Devarim, all the way down to the Jewish people when you see them in the destruction and desolation of Yerushalayim. It's one long thing. And Moshe Rabbeinu is already bemoaning it now because Moshe Rabbeinu, like a good doctor, like a good surgeon, says, I can see something going wrong. Something's not right. And he explains it as follows. When he says, so how does that relate to over here? So he says the following, very, very interesting. And I'll tell you a story. This is a true personal story that I often think of, and I've often told the story to people. There are two types of going and leading certain things, being in charge of or leading a vehicle or an animal. I'll give you an example. When I drive my car is equipped with power steering. I push the button. I go like this. It's going to turn to the right. I go like this. It's going to turn to the left. And so long as everything is okay with the car, you're driving a safe car, it'll do exactly as you say. In leading that car, there's no great skill, so to speak. The skill is not driving the car. The skill is making sure not to bang into everybody else that's coming and driving around you. If you were driving on empty roads, if there were no cars and you would be able to drive from here to Tesco, my son could make it from here to Tesco without a problem. Even those that don't have licenses, if they're not driving a manual car, they'll make it all the way to Tesco. It's no big deal. You just make sure. But you start getting cars from this way and from that way, and yield signs and stop signs, and people turning where they shouldn't, and people hooting at you, and people cutting you off. That's where the experience comes in. That's really what driving is all about, is learning how to do all of that. But a car drives on its own, more or less. That's why we have driverless cars nowadays. Tesla or other companies have cars that will drive you where you need to get to without you driving, because it's really pretty straightforward. But then you have something else as well. You have, let's say, riding a horse. Anybody ever ridden a horse? Ever go horseback riding? I don't know why they're called horseback riding. What else would you ride on the horse? Pardon? Donkeys on the beach. Yeah, okay. I've done donkeys also, but I've done camels in Israel, but I don't think I've ridden one. You just go on one of the camels. Oh, Clive Muswaki says, you've been horseback riding, Clive. Yeah. So I went horseback riding. Now, I remember there's 2 times I went horseback riding. One time I went horseback riding in America when I was in 9th grade. My friends were in 10th grade. We were together. This goes back to 1995, May 1995. Okay. And I went horseback riding that time with my friends. They had arranged for all of us to go horseback riding. It was a Lag BaOmer trip. And you got to this place in America and they gave you a helmet and they put you on the horse and they strapped you in and you had to sign away if you're going to get paralysis, God forbid, or if you're going to die. You cannot imagine. They have this long list. They're just worried about being sued. It was just one of those. It was awful. You read through this whole list. They think like, you're literally like, if anything happens to me when I go horseback riding, which includes loss of limb, loss of movement, paralysis, death, etc., I fully free such and such company from any obligation. All right, maybe I should sign that. Not a good idea. Well, you signed it, you go on the horse. It was great fun. Lovely. Now in 2000, yes, in the summer of 2000, I was in Israel and I went to a place in the south called Dimona. Dimona is where the nuclear power plant is in Israel. And we were sent over there by an organization called Lev La'achim, and Lev La'achim was going around. We were going around. I mean, this is ridiculous as it sounds. I was 20 years old. I was a yeshiva bocha, and I was going around and knocking on people's houses, trying to convince them to send their children to religious schools. I mean, I don't know if you had a religious kid of 20 knocking on your door, asking you to send your kid to a religious school, I'd show him the door. Definitely. Yeah, we had people took us in and we came in and we sat and we had a video that we had for them and we discussed it. And we did sign up a whole bunch of kids to go to Jewish schools. It was very, very interesting. And as part of this Lev La'achim program, the way it worked was as follows. You daven in the morning, you learned a little bit, you went on a trip paid for by Lev La'achim. And at night, you went to Pi'ilut, as it was called. You went out to knock on people's doors and go to people's houses and ask them if they wanted to, et cetera, et cetera. And so one day, we decided we were going horseback riding. And we went to this farm in Israel. Now, if I could say to you, this farm in Israel was the opposite of the farm in America that we went to. There are like 3 Israelis sitting there in shorts. Bo, bo. You know, they just stick you on a horse. Go. You're like, and off you go. Like, so anyway, there were like, I don't know, 9 of us. So the first group went 4 of them, and they came back and they're like, all right, we don't really want to send another group of 4 and then 1. We got 1 more horse. And they came out. They said, all my friends went on the horses. I was the last one. And they're like, okay, we got a special horse for you. And they came out with this behemoth of a horse. I have never, it's, you know, those Shire horses, you know what I'm talking about? They are just absolutely humongous. They came out with this humongous horse and they say, this one's called Tractor. And I'm like, oh my goodness me. Okay. Anyway, I sit down on Tractor and I'm like, this is a big horse. Nobody straps me in. I'm not wearing a helmet. I didn't sign any papers. If this horse throws me off, who knows what God's going to, who knows what's going to happen. I'm in the middle of the Negev desert riding this horse. And the horse just starts walking off. Literally, we're not even ready to go because we were going in a group. So there was like a group, a guy, a leader at the front, and then the 4 horses or 5 horses in the back. And we were going to ride together. My horse just goes off. And I'm like, Tractor, get back here. I'm pulling at these. You're supposed to pull the reins. And then just kept going. Just kept going. And I'm like, get back here. And he's just not listening to me. He just went off on one. And I'm like, started yelling at the guy who hires out the horse. And I'm like, what's with this horse? The thing doesn't listen to me. He goes, stop screaming at it. It'll start listening to you. I'm like, okay. Anyway, we start riding. This horse is going left, right, and says, go wherever he wants to. And I'm like, come here. Not doing whatever I want. And suddenly my friends went like, giddy up, and they started running. Their horses are like, this is fun. And my horse, being the biggest horse, went whoosh right past everybody else. And I'm like, get me off this stupid horse. Screaming away for 20 minutes. I spent 20 minutes screaming on this stupid horse. It was one of the most traumatic things I ever did, because when you're riding a horse that's that big, that no matter what you do doesn't listen to, like I didn't want to gallop. I just wanted to go nice and slowly. But because my friend started galloping, the stupid horse saw all the others galloping. So he's like, I'm going with you guys. Whoosh. I came off that horse and the guy's like, goodness gracious, why did you scream at the stupid horse for 20 minutes? I'm like, why did you give me a horse that doesn't listen to me? I don't want to ride a horse 3 times the size of all the other horses that doesn't listen to me and wants to do its own thing. I really don't. This is a true story. I know it's crazy as it sounds, it's a true story. These like Israeli stories. And in Israel, they're not like, oh, sorry, the horse didn't listen to you. They just yell at you like, what are you yelling at the horse for? Okay, fine. Sorry, my fault. Anyway, the reason I'm telling you that story is a horse is very different to a car. When I go like this with a car, the car's got no mind of its own. So as long as the car is past its MOT and it's functional, et cetera, when I go like this, the car won't say, hey, I don't want to go right. I'm going left now. Don't you do that. The car will go where I want it to go because it's been programmed. It's just a machine. A horse is not a machine. So a horse also has its mind. Now I can pull at the horse and try to get it to listen to whatever I want it to do, but the horse could exert its influence on me instead and say, I don't care which way you pull. I'm stronger. I'm going straight, even if you want me to go left or right, and it'll just go straight. And I'm going, go. It's not going to do what I want to. So in leadership, says the Sfas Emes, these are the 2 types of leadership. There's a leadership where you lead and everybody else wants to go along with you. That's the most wonderful type of leadership, by the way. The worst type of leadership is the second type of leadership, where you're in a constant struggle, in a constant battle with the people. So I want to go left, and they're like, why aren't we going right? So fine, I'll go right. Why aren't we going left? Whatever you want to do, they always want to do the opposite. You got a real problem. That's a real issue. So therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu says, I'm starting to see a downhill spiral. When I started off as the leader of Klal Yisrael, when we left Mitzrayim, when we left Egypt, I said, everybody followed, was brilliant. But I saw slowly, surely that leadership deteriorate into a point where instead of having a leadership where I say and people listen, everything I say is challenged. Everything I say is a problem, is a question. Who said? Maybe it's that way around. Why do you say this? Maybe you do that. And that's a problem. And so Moshe Rabbeinu says, if there's going to be this discord over here, if the leadership and the lay people are going to be going in two different directions, it's a recipe for disaster. And so Moshe Rabbeinu already bemoans right from the start. How am I going to manage on my own? Your contentiousness, your burdens, and your quarrels. You're constantly quarreling with me. You're constantly saying I'm not right. You're constantly saying there's a problem with what I'm doing. The more you challenge my leadership, the less koyach I have as a leader. And the less power I have as a leader, the more anarchy and problems there are going to be. Because in the end of the day, leadership is an important thing. It's important that a country, a government, whoever it is, has a leader. We know now with this leadership contest that this is a really big decision. Who is going to lead the Conservative Party? Now, I know you're making faces. You don't like the two contestants, contenders, whatever you want to call them, not contestants. You're the next contestant on the Leadership Council, Come on down, Rishi Sunak, what are you going to do with taxes? We will lower them. Can't do that. But leadership is important, and vice versa, because people lost trust in the leadership of Boris Johnson, why we got rid of him. Because of a vote of no confidence in the man. Because someone who keeps on lying and lying, we can't have him lead. So there's an issue there. Leadership is very important. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, I see my leadership deteriorating. And I can see that is the beginning of serious problems. And so Yeshaya Navi at a later stage says, Eicha hoisa lezaina. How did Klal Yisrael become so corrupted? So the mashal that he gives, the Sfas Emes says, sometimes you have a business that's starting to go down. And when the business starts to go down originally, things aren't so terrible. They're just the profits aren't what they used to be. And, we didn't post huge losses or anything. It's just not looking as good as it used to. And you see that trend continue for a year, 2 years, 3 years. And slowly but surely, the profits of the company are getting less and less. The reserves of the company are getting less and less. And what you'll often find at that point, in order to save the company, what will people do? Certain unethical things. People do things that are wrong to try to save it. And that's Eicha Hoisa Lezaina. It's gone wrong. Keep on going wrong and wrong and wrong. Suddenly things come out, hey, wait a second. What? And then after all of that, you see the desolation. You see it's gone bankrupt, the company disappears. This is the stages. We see, I see that you guys keep on fighting with me. That's really negative. From there, we take another step down. I see that you're behaving terribly. You've done things that are against what we believe in. And lastly, I see the thing has come apart entirely. That's the stages. And the stages start with that downward spiral, which is lack of belief in that leadership. And so the three eichas are connected. The reason we lay them together is connected, and they are really one thing leading to the next. Okay, so that was a beautiful idea that I wanted to share with you. And now we're going to move on to something else. Okay. Yeah, what are you saying? Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that. No, I thought that was very interesting as well. That's what I wanted to share with you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, so now we move on to another thing, and then maybe I'll say a short idea, or maybe I'll say the short idea first. Here's a beautiful short idea that I saw tonight in the, where did I see this? In the Meshech Chochmah. The Meshech Chochmah says, go back a few verses, verse 9, V'omar aleichem, I said to you, Be'esai lemar, At that time saying, what does it mean saying? Who are you saying to? I cannot carry you on my own. Hashem Elokechem here, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made you tremendous. He has multiplied you. You are today as the stars in the heaven in abundance. And Hashem, I wish that you should get another 1,000 times as much as this. Should bless you as he spoke to you. So Meshech Chochmah says a beautiful idea. You know, sometimes people have tzaras. Everybody's got tzaras. But some tzaras that you have are good tzaras to have, and some tzaras that you have are bad tzaras to have. Let me give you an example. Let's say you have a father of 10 children, and he's got one that's getting married, and he's got to come up with the money how to marry off his child. And he's got another child that's having bar mitzvah, and he needs to buy that child tefillin. And he's got a third one that's starting school and needs all their school things and everything, and he's got to start paying school fees for that child. And this father comes to the Beis HaMedrash and he says, I'm drowning. I'm drowning under all that money. All this money that's needed. And there are many people in our community like that. That's one set of tzaras. But there are people that have other sets of tzaras. It's interesting. I once heard somebody say the following. Somebody came to a Rav to ask him for a blessing. And the Rav says, I give you a blessing. You should have many tzaras in your life. The guy goes, that's a blessing? I should have many tzaras in my life? What kind of blessing is that, Rabbi? What kind of blessing are you giving me? He goes, let me explain it to you. Let's say you have a normal guy. You know, he wakes up late and his wife's yelling at him. So he's now woken up late and his wife's unhappy with him and he's got to take his kids to school and he's got traffic on the way and he's running out of petrol and he's running late to his meeting and the numbers and his business aren't showing what they're supposed to. So he's got lots and lots of things going on in his head. This guy's got lots of tzaras. But does he have serious issues? No. Imagine that guy goes to the doctor the next day and the doctor says, something here I don't like. Go get a scan. And he goes and gets a scan and he's waiting for the results of that scan. What's going through his head now? Waking up late? Who cares? Wife yelled at him? Doesn't matter. There's traffic? I'll manage. Who knows what the scan is going to show? If that scan shows something malignant, who knows what's going to happen? I'm going to have to go through chemo, or maybe I have to go through radio, and I might have to go through an operation. And suddenly that becomes your one and only worry. When people have serious tzaras in life, they have one and one only worry. And all the other little worries go out the window. You worry about all these little things. I'll give you an example again. We spoke about COVID before. Do you remember how we spoke about Brexit for like 3 years? Every single day in the news, this is what we asked for. This is not what we asked for. We need another referendum. We don't need a referendum. We're going to get Brexit done. We're not going to get Brexit done. Theresa May is the person to do it. She's not the person to do it. Can we do a hard Brexit? Can we do a soft Brexit? What about the backstop? What about Ireland? How long did we hear that stupid thing about? Yeah, 3 years. When was it? 2016 when they voted? Literally from 2016 when they voted on it till about 2020. All you heard was Brexit. And then one day a little virus showed up called Corona or COVID-19. And from that day onwards, did the word Brexit even come, from one day to the next, boom, gone. And similarly, by the way, even with Corona, when the Ukrainian war happened, some people say they credit Putin for ending Corona. Because when he invaded Ukraine, all the news stopped speaking about Corona. We got Corona, we got Ukraine. The bigger problems, one very big problem. We look at the smaller problems, we look at them less. Not to say that Corona is a small problem, but at that point, 2 years in, the problems that it was showing or that was causing were already a lot milder than what they were 2 years previously. And so when Putin started to attack Ukraine, people looked away from it. It almost became not mentioned in the news anymore. Until that time, the R number and how many vaccines you have to take and how you're traveling and if you can travel and how many people in a room. Oh, Putin invaded Ukraine. Who cares? Everybody get together, travel wherever you want to, have a coronavirus, don't have a coronavirus, just get on with things. We need to take care of Ukraine. Suddenly this big problem showed up and everything else moved away. And so what he says of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, here ba'eschem, he made you a lot and therefore there were many problems. The man who has to come up with the money for his child's wedding, and he has to come up with the money for his child's bar mitzvah, and has to send his child to the dentist for a root canal, and has another child who's starting school and has to spend 200 pounds on trying to get all of the supplies together. if he were to say to somebody else, I wish you the same problems that I have. That's a bracha. That is a blessing. Yes, I understand it's not great not to have the money. But those problems, those aren't bad problems. A man who has a daughter that somebody else who's a good boy wants to marry, and he just needs to come up with the money to pay for the wedding. I know thousands of people that would stand in line for that problem. They're hoping, they're wishing, they're praying that their child could find a partner, could find a spouse. Halavai, I have to pay for a wedding. Halavai, I have to make a bar mitzvah. People in Nebuch don't have children. Halavai can make somebody's meaning. Tefillin are so expensive. Stop moaning about tefillin being so expensive. You know how difficult it is to go through IVF? Do you know how difficult it is to wait for children? That's a very different story. Don't moan about that. That's not a problem. And so when you wish somebody else, this is what Moshe Rabbeinu is saying. I have many issues. But the same way, if you had a wealthy guy who's got lots of properties and a very big company, and he's doing very, very well, but he's got his stresses in life. And he says, I wish somebody else the same stresses that I have. That's a blessing. I'm blessing somebody. You should have prosperity and you should have lots of people working for you. Yes, with it comes stresses, but you know what? The stresses that I'm asking you to have are stresses that are coming from a positive source. We all will have stresses in our lives, but some people have stresses from a positive source and some people have stress from a negative source. So what would you rather have? I'd rather have stress from a positive source. You know what? Baruch Hashem, you have all these kids. You have to figure out how to pay for this one's yeshiva tuition and this one's wedding and this one's bar mitzvah. Yes, it's a stress. That's a wonderful stress to have. There'll be people that would pay for your stress. They'd love to have that stress. They're struggling with somebody who's got nebuch cancer. They're struggling with a spouse who's unwell. They're struggling with somebody that's struggling with mental health problems, with addiction, whatever. And you say to them, I'm looking for money for my daughter's wedding. I was looking for money for my daughter's wedding. I'd pay anything to get out of the tsaras that I have now to be paying for my daughter's wedding. What a stress to have. What a wonderful stress. And so Moshe Rabbeinu says, the blessing that I give you for generations to come is that the stresses that I have now, with you being so many and so many things that we need to take care of, is the Mashech Chochmah says that's a blessing to be given to future generations. Children come with their own stresses. Every child comes with their stresses. It's raising the child. It's paying to raise a child. It's the emotional energy. It's the physical energy involved. It's all of the troubles that they go through. Raising a child's not easy. It's hard work. But people love the stress that comes from it because I wish that on somebody else. Now, if somebody's got a serious issue with a child, I don't wish it on anybody. Somebody's got a child with a serious eating disorder or whatever it might be, chas v'shalom, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. But if somebody's got the regular stresses of life from having children, it's a wonderful stress to have. It's a wonderful problem for a person to have. No people that have so many different problems, difficult issues. And so Moshe Rabbeinu says, yes, I have difficulties, but I wish all the leaders after me to have the same difficulties, because the difficulties come from the fact that we have a Jewish people that is involved. They come from the fact that we have a large number of Jews. That's lovely to have so many Jews. For example, I'll give you an example. There are lots of people in shul that want lots of things from me, but that's a wonderful stress to have. You know what the worst thing would be in shul? If everybody says, I couldn't care less what the rabbi does. I don't need him. I don't know what he gets his paid a salary for. I don't need his shiurim. I don't need his davening. I don't need his laning. If the shul fired him, I couldn't care less. That rabbi is a much greater problem. The rabbi that has people saying the rabbi's not giving enough shiurim. Another one says the rabbi should go around and wish everybody good Shabbos. And the third one saying the rabbi should be pouring out l'chaims at the Kiddush. And the fourth one saying, the rabbi needs to go into children's services. That's good. You know what? Maybe it's complaints, but you know what it means? To me, at least, as a rabbi, it means people want you. People want you in this community to do things. You're not irrelevant. The worst thing is when, imagine if you didn't come in the children's service now for the next year and everyone's like, great, he doesn't come anymore. He used to ruin the whole flow of things. Came in, made us all meshuggah, had to say something, had to make himself the center of attention, walked straight back out. What a pain. Thank God he doesn't show up anymore. Yeah? Then you got a problem. right? Then you need to find out. And everybody says, oh, thank God he stopped giving that cheer. Every time he gets to speak, he says such rubbish. And it's so irrelevant to everybody else. And I hate his sermons. And he goes on for ages. He got nothing interesting to say. I wish he didn't speak. You know, when I don't speak and somebody comes to me at the Kiddush and says, you know what, Rabbi, it's a shame you didn't speak today. That's lovely. So I say, but somebody just complained. He says, yes, thank you for complaining. That's a wonderful, no, you don't agree? That's a wonderful complaint to have. If somebody came over to you at Kiddush and said, Rabbi, next time, please do give a drasha. That's a great complaint. Many Rabbanim will be desperate to have a complaint like that. Do you know what I mean? Certain complaints, yeah? Certain complaints are wonderful complaints to have. And that's really what we're saying. Moshe Rabbeinu is saying to the Jewish people, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made you a numerous people. And with making you numerous comes all the issues of having so many balabatim. But having so many balabatim comes with its blessings. All the things that you need to do and all the things that you have to take care of and all the things that people want you to do is actually a blessing. Because it means you're relevant and people want something from you. The greatest curse would be if everyone said, who cares about this guy? Just go away. And that's Moshe Rabbeinu's blessing. You should always stay numerous. You should always have the people that come after me, they should always have similar issues to what I have. Yes, you have people driving you crazy, but on the other hand, it means people care. The worst thing is if people don't care. The worst thing is for somebody, if you said to somebody, you should have 0 problems in your life. If you have 0 problems in your life, you're living a comatose life. A person who lives a normal life will have their stresses. But if I could bench somebody and I would say, you know what? The stresses that I have in my life, they're wonderful stresses. I wish them upon somebody else. Having to take care of the kids, having to sometimes come up with money for all sorts of crazy things, having to figure out where we're going to go in the summer. That's a wonderful stress to have. You know, if you didn't have, if I didn't have my life, then what would I be? See, I wouldn't have to worry. I can go anywhere I want on holiday because I have no kids that are driving me crazy. What a sad existence. Baruch Hashem have these stresses. And I'm happy to wish them upon anybody else. So you're cursing us with our stresses. No, because these stresses are blessings. Right? Somebody once said, I'll finish with this. Somebody once said that he was doing something with his child and it was difficult. He says, tsar gidul banim, which means the pain of raising a child. And somebody said to him, no, that's not the pain of raising a child. That's gidul banim. Raising children has its own stresses. That's just how raising children is. There is no raising children that's stress-free because you're dealing with other human beings and you're trying to raise them up and to turn them into human beings. It'll come with a stress. It's a wonderful stress to have. It's a stress to wish on anybody. Again, not in the extreme. If somebody says, I have a child who's got terrible mental health problems, a child who's suicidal, etc., etc. Chas v'shalom, I don't wish that on anybody. Chas v'shalom. But the regular stresses of parenthood, the regular stresses of a regular life, the regular stresses of work, regular again. That's wonderful. If you have a business and you're trying to figure out how to make it better, et cetera, and it comes with stresses, that means you have something that's working, right? If nobody bought yourself and nobody cared, you were going bankrupt. It's good to have those stresses. All these things are good. So we bless you, says Moshe Rabbeinu, to have good stresses in life, to have good sources of pain and problems. And with that, we'll leave it for tonight. Thank you very much for all of you who have joined me. And thank you to Clive on Zoom, to everybody else on Facebook Live, and to those on Torah Anytime. If you want some quality Torah content, Torah Anytime is a great place to go for this Torah content. Next week, we'll see if we have a share or not. I'll let you know during the week where I'm up to with my holidays. You're not coming next week. I won't take it personally, okay? Lovely. Good for you. I'm happy. You should go away without any stresses, right? Anyway, thank you so much. And I wish you all a very, very good week. Pardon? Money solves very, very few real problems. Money solves the small issues. It rarely solves the big issues. The big issues in life are never solved by money.